Bada bing. Well, hey, good afternoon. This is the March 11th, 2021 special called meeting of the SBDM Council with budget as our agenda item. It's 3:01 p.m. So our big goal for today is to review our site-based allocations. We'll also I'll generally explain how add-on budget works with that, in concert with that. We'll review our operational budget as well as the proposed operational budget for next year, and talk about our staffing allocations and our section 4 and 5 change form that we complete every year that shifts a little bit of our staffing allocations around. I am happy to say that we're receiving the same level, well, actually more funding than we have last year. So basically, a lot of the stuff's going to look very similar to what we currently have. We're not looking to overstaff any positions, and we're looking to sustain essentially what we've been doing. Big picture explanation. Before I forget, you all know how I get excited and I get down a path and I forget to take care of some logistical things. As a budgetary item, there are a few things that we're looking to purchase that are within our current, within a cost that we can incur with our current available balance. We're sitting on a little over $200,000 of funding for this current school year, not talking about next year at all, just this current school year. And I've been talking with our athletic director, our plan operators, our instructional leads, our department chair people, asking, what are some things that we need to buy to help improve the school that we can get to work right away. Our athletic director has been asking for many years, and the price tag on it was too high for me to really be able to jump in and provide support. But now for wrestling mats are those big things, to get proper tournament sized and conditioned wrestling mats, he's asking for $16,000. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but from a standpoint of a wrestling program that's been around since when I got here, it's a commensurate investment as much as we put into other programs. So $16,000 for wrestling mats. I talked with our maintenance man, who, I don't know if you, when you get into the building, you see he's been working for months on the LED lighting in all our classrooms. He also put all LED lighting into our 2 gymnasiums. And he's asking for a hydraulic lift for $7,000. This is like the things you see, construction workers using, where it would lift you up and bring you down. This is actually a used one for that cost, but it would be from a company that's on our bid, so it would be a quality product. And then finally, our plant operator, on her wish list is a floor scrubber. Essentially, to describe it that way. The floor, it's not simple though. This is the type of floor scrubber that would be doing the cleaning, the waxing, all that kind of stuff at $10,000 for that unit. So these aren't small ticket items, obviously, but they are well within the scope of the funding that we currently have. And I would like your all's approval to move those funds into the appropriate codes to go ahead and get the ball rolling on the purchases of those. It's not going to have any negative impact on our students, our book purchases, or any other type of funding that we need at this time, or negatively impact instructionally anything. I'm going to open the floor for maybe any questions on that. Floor scrubber for $10,000, hydraulic lift for $7,000, and wrestling mats for $16,000.
Motion to approve.
Second motion.
Seconded.
Great. Anybody have any concerns? Can we say we have consensus on this? Awesome. I appreciate it. Let's see. Anything else that's related to those type of purchases, we'll wait until next week in our normal meeting. But there are several of those we wanted to go ahead and get the POs in so we could get the ball rolling with it.
Dr. Averly, can I ask a quick question?
Please do.
during the board meeting on Tuesday night, there was a lot of discussion about CARES funding and CARES money coming to the district. Has it been determined, or have you heard yet, will any of that roll out to the individual schools? Obviously, every school is going to benefit, but will there be some of that earmarked for each individual school when that CARES money finally becomes available?
Oh yeah, that process is already in play. Um, I've already been our school, not me. Our school has been approved for $270,000 in extra service pay for our staff in order to have our return to school plan implemented for the rest of the school year. Also just requested another $30,000 to support some before and after school activity, supervision and activities. Let's see. So we're right now, Atherton is looking to receive about 300,000 for this school year alone, like to be used by June 1 to support the transition. So we as a school are not incurring the costs that are coming out of our hybrid plan in April and May.
That's great. Thank you. It's great to hear that both the staff and also ultimately rolls down to the students will benefit from that too. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and screen share here, and let me get to the item I want it to be on so I don't mess it up. Ah, okay, now I know what I'm doing. I want to open it from here. All right. So I'm going to go through the budget discussion, and I'll just keep talking. If you want to raise your hand, grab my attention. I've got the video here. I'll be screen sharing, so I may get distracted for a while. If not, just unmute and say, "Hey, wait a minute," and we'll talk further on something. But I'll go through it's my responsibility to make sure you know, like, where the funds that you're responsible for are coming from and where they're going to. And I love to talk numbers, so more than happy to like really elaborate with someone who wants to dig in deeper. I also respect the fact that a lot of times people don't ask questions because they're just trusting that things are doing well, but I try to earn that trust through transparency. So let's see, Tessa, will you give me a thumbs up? Are you seeing the site-based allocation? Okay. So this tells us our site-based allocation. It's called the, what is it called? Section 4, 5, and 6 form. There we go, section 4, 5, and 6. So this is based on the projected number of students that will be enrolled in our school in August. The district is projecting us at 1,503 students. That's more than we've ever been projected for. And I'm gonna tell you, it will not be that number, and I'm not letting it get to that number. But because of the trending of our enrollment, particularly during this past year where our enrollment really increased, they're looking at that as our number. So I'm being very cautious not to spend a lot of the staff or extra money they're giving us, because it's my responsibility to get that number down more towards 1,450 students. And in doing that, we'll lose a couple teacher allocations as well as some other impact from that. And when I say we're losing it, we're not actually losing anything we have. We're losing what they were projecting us to have. So we don't want to make a commitment that in August we'd have to back out of. I don't know if I explained that well, but as it comes up, if you want to ask anything specifically. So based on that number, they gave us an operational budget of $210,420. That's just a per pupil expenditure. So if our numbers don't come in at 1,503, they will take some of that operational money back. Not a big deal. That's the way it works. Scrolling down here, seeing our based on this number, they're giving us a projected number of teachers as well. So I don't expect us to hold at this number, so we'll probably lose 1 or 2 of this projected teacher allocation, none of which we need right now and we won't be using. And that way, when the numbers, if the numbers come in lower, then we're not actually losing any staff. I hope that all makes sense. Well, the rest of this, I kind of just pointed things out, like where our career technical education extra funding is coming from. This is one small part of it, this 2.5 teachers here. We have a second librarian, which every year, and frankly, almost every school does this too. They sell the extra teacher and purchase other positions. This will come into play later when I'm talking about our staffing change request form. So I'm just making a note of that. That librarian, 187 days. I met with our librarian earlier this week, asked her what money she needed. I'll tell you where we put that, and then what we're doing with that library staff position that you can cash in or trade in for either other funds or other positions. We are also currently, I highlighted here, I don't know if you can see my hand cursor, the school clerk. We are assigned 2 school clerk positions. We hired one of our school clerks in the middle of last year into our attendance clerk position, and left that position vacant. I met with our head counselor earlier today. Actually, Sarah, you're on here. And we talked through that. And honestly, with all the changes going on, we're not really looking to fill that position at this moment. We'd rather kind of wait until the school year gets started and we have a good feel for the type of position, what the type of responsibilities we're looking to fill that. So that'll be another position that we're looking to cash back in, to trade back in for another position or funding. Now, we can always buy these back in August, and then we would be advertising for that position and filling it. At this time, since we're uncertain about the exact use of that position, we're going to wait on that. I'm going to pause there for just a minute. I don't expect you. I'm not finished by any means. I just want to see if there's any questions on this preliminary site-based allocation.
Dr. Aberly, can you remind me how many library assistants we have? Do we just have 1 or do we have 0?
We have 0 right now.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we've typically had 1 or 2 library assistants, and I've spoke with Ms. Waters, and she asked at this time, again, we'd rather kind of start the school year and have people in the building before we start filling the position right now. So she requested that as well. So that's another position where we may come back and refund it, fund it through our site-based allocations. That requires your all's approval. All right, I'm going to scroll on down to add-on budget. So, and I'm going to rotate this. I found the little trick here. It's view, rotate, counterclockwise. And then I will blow this up a little bit. And 175. So this is our add-on budget. This is all, this whole thing is in our folder. It's under budget March 2021. So if you wanted to pull this up on your own, sorry, I don't have a way to quickly provide that link in the chat, but also, so with this, I'm just kind of showing, this is the add-on budget. It's not something that I have control to shift things around, nor do we as a site-based council, but it does impact some of the decisions we make. For example, up here, the very first number here has to do with the school receiving another 2.5 teacher allocations to support our regular program as a 7-period day school. We also receive our transition center teacher that through this allocation. We receive another teacher position to support our magnet program, which is in here. And I've just kind of made some notes off to the side. ECE teachers, our implementation coach. We get a lot of funding through our academies, through our add-on. And then why would the district put things as add-on and not just put them all in one thing? Well, the other site-based allocation we were looking at, we have this discussion about what we sell, what we trade, what we buy. You can't do that with add-on. This is the district saying you have this for one particular reason. You can't change it. So that's kind of just to know the difference between site-based and add-on budgeting. Within the add-on budget, we are funded for one in-school security monitor. And as our assistant principals know, having one in-school security monitor is not a lot of help. We've always had 2 or 3. We've been funding for 3 lately, and honestly, we need it. We need bodies at entrances. We need bodies responding in classrooms. We need supervision support during lunch, and so that's going to be something that I'm going to bring up, where this is a position. These are 2 positions we need to buy in the future. And then there's just the academic instructional coach, the mental health counselor. That's where the add-on budget comes into play to fund those programs. So so that's where staffing and funding come from. I was going to move into our operational budget next. So if again, if you want to go in and pull that link up yourself, otherwise you can just follow along on the screen. I'm going to rotate this properly, rotate clockwise, and there we go. So what this sheet shows us is the last 2 years and the current year of expenditures that happened within these codes. They kind of help you benchmark how much we have been spending in those categories. They shouldn't be used as totally trend setting, because especially with what's happened over the last calendar year. But sometimes, like, a large chunk of money was moved into a code for one particular reason. That's not a recurring expense. So that's why sometimes, even though, like with I'm going to shrink this so that y'all can read it. It's going to be, I don't know how legible it is at that size, but we're going to have to do that to see what the codes are. So like with technology related supplies, like this year we've spent $36,000, and it had to do with a lot of some of the academy technology we bought, had to do with the Chromebooks that we purchased at the very beginning of the year, at the beginning of last school year, prior to COVID, as well as into this school year. So we don't necessarily need to be funding it at that level. So I just put an average of 10,000 in each one. And here's how it works. If we end up needing to spend more than that, that's when I come back before the site-based council and say, hey, I need to buy an X, Y, or Z, just like I did at the beginning of this meeting. And then you all approve it, we move it into that code, and it gets spent. Beyond that, though, like by putting this much money into those codes, you're basically saying you're okay to spend that first 10,000. And if you go above the 10,000, you need to come back before SBDM council. Does that make sense? So like if I needed to buy $5,000 worth of monitors or something, I don't necessarily, even though I always do because I add it into our monthly report, technically I wouldn't need to do that until we go above the allocation. You'll see a lot of $1,000 markers in here, and that's because we want to keep that code alive. Sometimes we do like a renovation and they want, $300 to come out of some wonky code that we wouldn't normally use by itself, but it's combined with several other codes. And that's why you'll see a lot of 1000s listed in here. And then at the bottom of each page, I just put the total, because ultimately I need to get to that 210,420 number that I talked about from the very beginning. Just putting money in here for professional development, put in the money that the library had asked for in order to order supplies, as well as to keep on top of the books, annual amount of books that she's wanting to purchase. Again, this is like I've explained it before this way, and I don't know if people like it or not, but this is the Dave Ramsey envelope, right? This is where we think we're going to spend this money, and if we're going to shift it around, then you need to come back to the SBDM for approval. As a principal, I do. So that's where we're putting $10,000 into postage. And honestly, we spend that every year. So, and then all the other 1,000 things are things where we'll spend a few, we may spend only a couple $100 out of it, but we don't lose it. It's still all one bank account. We're dividing it up the way we possibly may be spending it in the long run. The $8,000 for other printing is materials and production, JCPS materials and production items. Some overtime for our classified and building personnel is located within this budget allocation. Here's kind of the big page with the bigger numbers. We always set aside about $10,000 a year for our department heads. We get an allocation by the district, and then we also add more to it because I want to make sure our department heads are getting, and our academy leads and our besides our department chairs, we fund it's the academies that we fund, and it kind of overlaps with the number of teachers. So that money goes for our teacher leadership. $30,000 for certified extended time. That's our teacher overages and our it's not teacher overages. It's for our teachers who are paid an extra hour to work through their planning, so to speak, for our teachers who have a large overage. And this $41,920, that was just the money left over at the end. Like after we put everything in where we needed it, that's our general supply code. I have it memorized, 018-1118-0610-900XF. Just that's the code we always use for the general supplies of stuff. And then the final page had some other, miscellaneous allocations, but it all added up to the $210,420. This is the operational budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022, not including any rollover money, not including any money we currently have. I will pause there to breathe and see if y'all have any questions. I can't see everybody, so if you have a question, just unmute. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Dr. Abele, I'm curious about the Chromebooks. I know we discussed that we're going to be replacing the Chromebooks that went out. Is that through CARES money, or is this going to have to come out of our budget, PTA money? How is that going to work?
Right. The district has assured us that all Chromebooks, we lent out 350 Chromebooks, and they assured us that they'll either come back fully functional or the district will replace it themselves. And the 100,000 we were getting ready a few months ago to spend on new Chromebooks, they said they're not approving those at this time because they're looking to use that CARES money to buy enough Chromebooks to get into every kid's hands, either through the classroom, through the school, or one-to-one, depending on the way the school would manage it. So that's good news. That's really good news. Because even $100,000 would only double our Chromebook inventory and still only be at 50% of our student enrollment. How is that for percentages? I can roll those numbers off. All right, then, and again, I'm happy to do any Q&A that you want, but so when I talked about staffing change requests back from the very first form, where I said there was that librarian that we don't use, we cash it in or trade it in for another position. I also mentioned the school clerk position that is vacant right now. Both these positions are vacant. And if we cash them in, then we can buy the 2 in-school security monitors that I mentioned. The district only pays for 1. We have 3 right now. We've been funding 3 for several years. And so that's why we're buying 2 positions. Something I usually forget about, but I remember to do it this time. We pay for our band instructor, our band teacher, to be here an extra period, more so than he is allocated in our building, and that costs us a little under $10,000 every year for that extra hour, which is good money. Well, money well spent. because we have so many kids participating in it. So the difference, when you add these up, the difference between what we're spending is that 17,000, and that goes into the general fund code that I said I can roll off my tongue without thinking about it. So it's the general funds code. Any questions on our staffing change requests? Nobody's losing their job, you know. We're essentially trying to maintain our same level of staffing. Now, I'm just to make sure that I am speaking accurately. It's my projection that we are going to need a teacher, particularly an engineering teacher. We're currently are understaffed in engineering, particularly with the number of students and the number of preps that those teachers have. And so we're looking to advertise for, say, like a mechanical engineer would be ideal. Or aerospace or electrical that would support what we currently have. Mechanical engineer would help us really expand. Mechanical or civil engineer. So if you have somebody in mind, reach out to me. Don't say it in this meeting because this is a public forum that's being recorded. But I'd be happy to follow up if you have any leads. So in order to finalize this, I just need your all's, I'm going to stop screen sharing. This is the final form. This is the budget approval form with your all's consent. What I would do is just write your all's name in there and say that it was signed virtually. Any further discussion?
I have a staffing question.
Sure.
So if I have counted and remember correctly, next year will be the year that we have extra physics students from when we switched the order of science courses.
Mm-hmm.
Are we able to support that with our 2 teachers? Or are we going to need to look into hiring like a half-time teacher or something, if that's even possible?
No, I'm meeting with Kelly and Kevin tomorrow to talk about not only the hybrid schedule, but also staffing. We do it every year. Physics and chemistry are 2, every year we're looking at the types of swings that happen. So we'll be, and talking about how the impact of NTI may have on exactly that issue, you know, what our numbers are.
Okay.
So I would say at this time, I'm not saying that that we need to be advertising for it. I'd love to get another physics teacher. Don't really have a place to put him or her, unfortunately. Right. So it's going to be adding people is going to be a challenge. Same thing with our engineering teacher. Where do they go? Where do their resources go? How do we make that happen? And ultimately, you have to make tough building allocation choices, right? And more teachers you add, the more people who float, and the more impact that has on every other classroom teacher as well. So yeah, but I'm aware that you know that physics change is going to have those domino effects, and we're kind of watching how that ripple effect is happening. And as we do scheduling this year, we'll start getting those numbers actually by in the next 2 or 3 weeks as those schedule requests go into the computer, and we can be using those numbers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Motion to approve the budget, operational budget, and the section 4 and 5 change form.
Motion to approve.
Seconded. Awesome. Do we have consensus? And is it okay that I write everyone's name down that's here that on the budget approval? All right, cool. Awesome. Well, that's it. Yeah, I'd love to talk with you more, but I will next week. Since this is a special called meeting, I want to talk about other things that are happening within the school and stuff, but I'm going to have to wait till next week to do that because of the way SBDM procedures require. But look forward to talking to you next week as well, and not have to have this looming over us. So thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.